Well, week 6 is upon us, so that means you have 3 weeks of this course left, and you're in the midst of what I think is, in some ways, the most challenging, but also the most rewarding and the most creative of our assignments, which is the web writing assignment. And that really has 2 phases, as you know from reading the assignment sheet. In the first phase, you're writing something that's kind of akin to a report or a memo, where you're trying to communicate to the small business owner the ways that their current website is failing either the business's needs or the user/reader's needs, and so that's more of a traditional sort of writing assignment. Stage 2 is the stage that I tend to get more questions about, and that's really what I've tried to provide samples of now on Blackboard, which were posted as of about 7:30 tonight on Monday. And those should give you some sense of how to approach that. Here's the reality of the situation. I don't expect you to be web designers. That's not what this is about. What this is really about is getting you to think about how to present information on the web, how to solve reader problems, and also how to put forward the best image of the company or the business possible. So generally speaking, if you pick from the list of websites that I offered you, or you found one of your own, generally speaking, those websites are not putting forth the best ethos of the company or the best brand of the company or the best image of the company possible. And so it's your job to sort of evaluate the ways that that's failing and to offer sort of a fresh look on how that might play out. So a way that you might think about it is, many of you wrote really detailed and compelling and interesting and insightful analyses of the Bunny Clark website. And so the next stage then would be to mock up what the site ought to look like. And so you may say, well, at the top of the page, we want to have our logo with our contact information so somebody can contact us easily. And then we want to have some type of slideshow that shows not only the boat and people having fun, but also the variety of species of fish that we catch. It's that sort of thought exercise, and so that's why I say that it's creative. What makes it challenging is that basically you have a blank canvas, and I'm not telling you what to do or how to do it. And part of that is because a website really needs to, again, the genesis of a good website comes from the user's needs and the business's needs. And so that's sort of how I want you to think about this. What is a user likely to come to this website needing or wanting to know? And then what does the business really need to accomplish with that space on the web? And so when it comes down logistically to doing this, I really don't care how you do it, frankly. Stage 2, you'll notice, is worth half as much as stage 1. So again, I'm not asking you to be a web designer. What I am asking you to do is prove to me that you sort of understand how information could and should be presented on the web based on all of the sort of things that I talked about in my last lecture relative to the differences between print and web writing. And so it should be easy to scan. It should be visually interesting. It should put the unique selling propositions front and center. It should be broken up really nicely with headings. It should use crap really well. Those types of things. And so that's what I'm sort of looking for you to enact in your mock-up or your wireframe or your sketch of what the website should look like. Now you'll notice, if you take a look at the 3 samples that I've posted on Blackboard, there's a variety of ways that you can do that. And I'm not kidding when I said that you can literally sit down with colored pencils or pencils and paper and draw out what you think it ought to look like. Because again, your audience for stage 2, whereas stage 1 is written towards the small business owner, stage 2 is really sort of you trying to communicate with a web designer or a marketing firm on what you want things to look like. And I think that's important because that sort of recreates a really realistic scenario that small business owners and small business employees run into all the time, where they sit down with a marketing firm or a web consulting firm, and they have to explain what they want. And I think the ability to do that well and to tie that to the things that we've been talking about all semester, that's really important. And so that's sort of I'm really trying to get you to do 2 things at once. In stage 1, I'm trying to get you to write in a really clear, concise, approachable way about what is relatively pretty technical subject matter, which is web design. And then in stage 2, I'm just getting you to try to think outside of the box and to think creatively about how this final product might look to guide somebody's action. So, but you'll notice in looking at some of the samples that there's a variety of ways that you can do this. You can use Microsoft Word, good old Microsoft Word, and you can lay out something that looks pretty similar to a website. So by changing the color of the font, by using tables, by inserting and copying and pasting images, those types of things, you can get really creative. You could also use PowerPoint, which in some ways is a little bit more fluid for doing things like this because you're not bound to a word processing software. You can really drag and drop things around. It's a little bit more fluid. You could also use Microsoft Paint or Photoshop, really anything that you're familiar with. You will see that a couple of folks from last semester sort of took it upon themselves to use free web development tools. And so folks use Google Sites or Wix or Squarespace or Weebly, and they made these mock-up websites. All I ask, if you do that, and that can be a really good way of presenting what you're thinking about is either don't make it public, so don't publish it, or if you do publish it, just change the name to protect the innocent. I don't ask these companies for permission to use their websites. They're free and publicly available, so I think it's fair game for us to look at them and analyze them. But there's really no need for us to have multiple Heritage House restaurant websites circulating the internet. So that's all I ask, is that if you do choose to do that, either don't publish it, or if you do want to publish it, just go ahead and change the names in the identifying information. So at the end of the day, I'm really trying to get you to think about web writing best practices. I'm trying to get you to think about what a good, effective web presence looks like. And at the end of the day, I'm always trying to think about what utility does this assignment or does this experience have beyond this class. And my thinking is that if you can execute this assignment well, you could really execute any type of marketing literature or collateral. So I'm talking about brochures, I'm talking about flyers. If you can sort of identify the way that those things are failing, communicate those clearly, and then come up with a new idea based on sound rhetorical thinking about your audience, your purpose, your unique selling propositions, your benefits over features, your AIDA approach, then you're probably going to be in a pretty good situation to improve the marketing materials for any company that you work for or nonprofit. So that's really what we're up against. So a couple of other logistical things. I'll be working on your resumes and cover letters, getting you grades back. You probably will not see a grade on those until Friday, but my plan is to go through those pretty closely and give you feedback, because again, my goal is that you leave the class with the best resume and cover letter that you've had. I will also be working on trying to get back some of the revision grades that you submitted last week. So you should see, if you did that, you should see your overall grade in the class improve. And then finally, I'm going to be out of town basically from tomorrow morning around 11 o'clock until Friday sometime in the afternoon. So I will not be able to respond to emails. So just hold on to your questions. Don't fret. If something comes up and you have a problem that you can't solve, just try to keep your momentum, but we can solve that problem when I get back, and I won't penalize you if things come in a little bit late. I realize it's not an opportune time to be sort of leaving the class, but I'll be back on Friday to answer the questions going into the weekend. So that's what we're up against. If you have any questions or concerns before tomorrow afternoon, feel free to call, text, or email. Otherwise, I'll catch up with you guys on Friday. But again, have fun with this assignment. It's really about you sort of rethinking how a company is presenting themselves on the web and how effective that presence is for a reader, a future customer, a future donor if you picked a nonprofit, etc. Thanks a lot.